My name is Kurt,
I'm Sierra.
And I'm Tabitha.
and today we're going to tackle a couple topics that we have on our agenda. Initially, we were going to talk about the Board of Peace, but
But Trump decided to bomb Iran illegally, unilaterally, sans Congress.
and so now what do we have to do? Well, what we're best at doing. We're going to shift a little bit, and we're going to talk about both subjects today because we want to make it make sense. And right now, there isn't a damn thing that's making sense to any of us.
Right. So we're going to talk about all the things that piss us off with foreign politics today.
Yeah, initially the Board of Peace was what
Board of
we were
Peace
going
in
to
Iran.
talk about because it's hitting close to home in Indiana with the connection of Beau receiving money from Mark Rowan. And we dug into that and we were just shocked at all the things that we were discovering. And it seems like it's never ending. It just keeps going because now the Epstein files became part of it.
I definitely think that this Epstein class, the Epstein files, has a lot to do with foreign policy, especially because you see foreign policy coming up over and over again in the files, with Epstein talking to Ehud Barak, talking to Mossad, talking to different pieces in the U.S. government. Absolutely, like, and the lack of accountability for the member states of the Board of Peace and for the Epstein class, like, if it was a Venn diagram, it would just be a circle at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Board of Peace has become something that we're just shocked at and what is happening. Uh, it's an organization that was created by the Trump clan. And he made himself lifetime director
Lifetime
of
appointment, even if he's not even if somehow magically this man outlives the presidency and doesn't, and just if he'll just be a normal private citizen who still actually serves as the head of the Board of Peace. Like, this is insane. It's a position that doesn't move with the office, it stays with the dude. And no one else is like, this is like the Alibaba version of the UN. This is wild,
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Okay. Jesus Christ. Somebody just needs to say this. If this was Obama, people would be crawling out of their skins right now. Honestly, like Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when everybody was just losing their shit over that? Like, here's this black man. He's got the middle name Hussein. Where was he born? I don't know. His mom's
yeah.
white, his black, like his dad's black. And oh, where is he from? And then now we flash forward from that to this other guy who's clearly ripping us off. Like, what other president would ever, Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatnot in our past, would ever be able to pull this shit off?
I mean, not to this level, not to this degree, but I mean,
Yeah.
Halliburton absolutely benefited from having Dick Cheney as the VP.
Right.
Well, and to Tabitha's point, the thing that I don't know if a lot of people know this or what just blows us away is that he has made himself the head of all decision making, basically. So he decides where the money goes, how to spend the money, and he's in control of the money. He has no holds bar control of every aspect of this Board of Peace. It's a pay to play structure. $1 billion to join this Board of Peace, and it goes into a private fund that he controls. And for what, 5 years, 6 years, we heard nothing but Hunter's laptop. And that was about a what, $12 million salary that he was getting. And this guy here is ripping us off for billions.
And installing his son-in-law. I mean, Hunter Biden sat on the board of Burisma because he's a Nepo baby, and that's upsetting, which I agree.
Yes,
Nepotism
exactly.
is upsetting. But Jared Kushner, please somebody explain to me that man's qualifications for sitting on the Board of Peace. Like, he literally is up there with some AI-generated slop photos of Gaza and saying that we're going to plan for catastrophic success of the economic colonization of an entire land. What are you doing with the rest of these people? Like, Palestinians and Gazans are still in tents. They are still in Gaza. They're still waiting for humanitarian aid, waiting to go back home and rebuild whatever they can. Where are we putting them? What are we doing with them? We're going to build like 50 FIFA stadiums and data centers and skylight high residential. Like, what the fuck are we even talking about right now? Like,
Well, we're certainly not putting them at the table to have any conversation with what's going to happen to their future of their land and their peoples. because
No, but
they're
they
not
did bring
included
in
in
that one
this.
token Palestinian speaker to open. I don't know if you guys saw that Board of Peace, the first meeting. They brought one token Palestinian, Ali Shahath, and they were like, look, we let him talk for 5 minutes. And now silence. Go sit over in the corner and let the colonial powers talk about your fate and the fate of all your
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's important to mention this as well because there's so many tentacles with this Board of Peace. And these tentacles even reach into our state, right? Like all the controversy with Bobai, with Apollo Global Management, that, this money is very clearly dirty. This is why it's so important to get money out of politics. This is why it's so important to get regular, Joe Schmo into those seats that very clearly sees, hey, this is not a good thing at all. I mean, everybody, if it were you, right? Like, if you were the Palestinian, you absolutely would want a seat at that table. So we have to break this, whatever it is. I mean, this like unspoken American monarchy, this very high, wealthy, elitist sort of group, that's just monopolizing everything. And they're not giving us anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the connections with Board of Peace and with Indiana and Bobi, and let's talk about that just a little bit so everyone can understand why it is so important for us, not only on the international and national level, but here locally. Before we get into talking about Iran, but Bobi is one of the Democratic candidates for Secretary of State here in Indiana, and our candidate will be selected by delegates at the state Democratic convention. They do not receive the nomination through a primary vote, which I think is fucked up, but that's the way it is right now. And that's one of the reasons that Tabitha and Sierra and I have gotten together, is because we started digging into us three, out of all the group people that we've come to know, notice that we were digging into this a lot deeper than a lot of other people were. For a couple months, Sierra, nobody was paying attention to it. And we were all like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, after we start making content,
Yeah,
well,
and
you know,
after the trove of Jeffrey Epstein files, because like now it is undeniable. Who is Mark Rowan? Mark Rowan is all over the Epstein files. He is closely, intimately connected with Leon Black, obviously his co-founder at Apollo Global Management. And on January 5th of this year, he donates $25,000 to Bo Bai. And just, yes, the fact that there are people, and especially the Indiana Democratic Party, like the establishment, the apparatus itself, is just like, no, just turn a blind eye to that. Forget that you saw that. Money is money, and we need money to win elections. And it just feels like, yes, but money at what cost? What is that money buying you? And why on earth are you treating me like it's just $25 from Martinsville that we're talking about, and not $25,000 from some coastal elite who is all over the Epstein files? Like, what does this man give a shit about Hoosiers in Indiana? He doesn't care. He's not sitting in his mansion sipping his fucking malt liquor and thinking, I really just want to help the average Hoosier so they don't have to eat bologna and mac and cheese for dinner. Like that, he's not thinking that. He's thinking, I'm going to spend $25,000 and I will have some return on investment in that. Whether it's, getting shell companies approved through the Secretary of State's office, whether it's having, elections be fucked with. Like, I don't specifically know what it is that Mark Rowan is after, other than I am always weary when private equity comes to town and says, hey, I have a deal for you, or hey, I like your politician.
well, when we found out the information about Mark Rowan, we were shocked and wanted to know who this guy was. Just like there's a couple other dudes, Greg Wendt and William Obendorf on his list, amongst others. But these three guys are the ones that really put up the red flag. So then we started digging into, who Mark Rowan is and Apollo Global Management, and what did we find? We found out that Beau's father, Evan, has been an employee of Apollo Global Management since 2011. And then the ding ding dings went off on all of us, and that's when we started doing a heavy dive. And all three of us have done pieces on Substack and on other social media about this particular subject.
And we're
And
going to
it's
need to start
crazy.
doing like a web. We're going to need like a bad guy web.
Yeah.
start spidering out because just Evan Buy has connections to Apollo Global, to No Labels, and then those things have connections somewhere else, and it becomes this big, dark, sinister web that you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And
Yeah,
when did Hoosiers lose control of our state? Because
yeah.
this is bullshit.
Well, I think
Uh,
it's important to note, right? Like, why all of us got into this. Because we all very much want these people to be okay. Like, my family's been here for a long time. Kurt's family's been here for a long time. And
mhm.
Sierra, tell a little bit about your story and why you care about Hoosiers.
Family's been here. Well, some of them have been here a while, and then my mom's side came over in 1915, so from Syria. So that's kind of why I care so much about the Middle East. It's like I just homeland, but I care about Hoosiers because I am a Hoosier, and I fucking hate struggling, and I just fucking hate watching my neighbors and I work really hard, harder than we've ever worked, and we're constantly talking at the end of the driveway, pulling the trash cans up, looking at each other like, man, another week of this shit. My husband and our neighbor just did that. Another week of this shit. I'm just so tired. And he's laughing, going, yeah, man, I'm 60 years old, still turning wrenches, trying to make a living. So
Yeah. Well,
Well, I
and
think
that's why we dug into this is because we are so concerned about our state, and we wanted to find out who this Beau is because everyone from my generation, I'm 62 years old. Okay, I'm at the end of the Boomer generation, and my heritage is long in Indiana, so I care about this state, and I wanted to find out what the hell was going on here because everybody was goo goo and gaga on over Beau, and, "Oh, I remember your
doesn't
grandpa and
even
all
go
this." Well,
here.
yeah, you know, but people from younger generations like Sierra and even younger, they don't know who this guy is from Adam. They don't know the name Bai because Bai has not been around here for, since the last time he was around was 2016, so over 10 years. So people that are 25 years old, they were 15. They weren't paying attention to politics like they do nowadays. Things were completely different. So he doesn't have the name recognition with the people in our state who are actually trying to make a difference. And that's one of the reasons why, you see an age gap here with the three of us is because we span generations and heritages across Indiana, but we are here for one common goal, and that is to save our democracy and to ensure a future that is somewhat stable for our kids and grandkids. And I know that hits deep with both of you because you have young kids that you guys are raising. So, that's one of the things that I love being able to lock shoulders with younger generation is because I understand the struggles that you are facing, even though I'm not facing the same ones. I have my own. I can't imagine raising kids in today's world. Mine's 32 years old, so she's an adult. But, my wife and I have discussions daily. I'm retired. She's got a couple years left. What are we set up to be able to? Well, no, because we're not millionaires. I don't know what our future holds. So,
let's dive into
it's
that a little bit more. Like, I was looking at this shit show and I was like, oh my God. And my journey started with they were trying to pull resources from my kids and other kids like them. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard my kids in the background. Like, I'm hardcore doing the single mom thing over here. And then I watched all these other people that were just suffering. And it didn't matter whether you were, elderly, the disabled, whether you're part of the autism community, whether you're, a female, single mom, maybe you're a single dad, but just everybody around me was struggling. And what I exceptionally hated was it didn't seem to matter what the topic was, right? All of us got drug in somehow. All of us got drug in by one thing to be extra political, right? Because life is political, as we found out. But of the current legislators that are sitting either in our state house, our state senate, Congress, or whatnot, they clearly don't feel accountable to their people. They don't feel the need that they have to respond to us. Hell, they won't. Like, I've sent so many emails and called and whatever, and I've been on virtual town halls. And anyway, I just paint this picture to say, when people ask what radicalized me, I'm like, all of this. And then just to see the clear connection between the haves and the have-nots all over the world. I was not in the military, but I've got a lot of family members that were in the military. I was also college age whenever, Iraq, Afghanistan, all that was going on. I feel like the US has been at war almost my entire life. And then here we go again like a boomerang. And it's just, for me, maybe I had to see it as an adult, right? Because I've got nieces and nephews that are teenagers now, and they're impressionable. And I see all of this misinformation bouncing around, and I'm like, right, this is organized. We saw Elon Musk come in and Peter Thiel come in and all these other people trying to dismantle, whatever we have left of our democracy, right? And this is why people like us are called forward, because it's a principle thing. We're not doing it for the money. We're not doing it for the recognition. We're doing it to help people and to save our democracy, like Kurt said.
Yeah, we don't know the answers. We don't have the answers to everything. And I don't think there is a solid answer to it. But we can't stand back no longer and be silent. And I think that's one of the problems Indiana has faced for a long time, in the country, for that matter. Participation. I'm guilty of it. I admit that. My life has been crazy with so many other different things. But I don't use that as an excuse to
Well,
change the
I have
past.
a theory
Yeah.
on why Americans hate, voting and participating so much outside of, lesser of two evils thing, if you're interested. Um, I
Yeah,
I hon
absolutely.
I think it honestly just comes all back to money and politics. The fact that people
Hmm.
just have like paid family leave sits at like 70-80% approval across party lines. It's bipartisan. So why don't we have it? Money and politics. Common sense gun legislation, like background checks, is also something that receives like 65-70% support across bipartisan lines. Even Republicans support things like background checks because it's common sense. That doesn't see any light of day. Why doesn't that see the light of day in Congress? Money and politics. So
Hmm.
I think that like it all just comes back to money and politics. And for this specifically, the war in Iran and the Board of Peace, I absolutely think it comes back to is pro-Israel lobby money in politics,
Oh, it's
even down
yeah.
to the state level. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was a piece in Chicago media. It's a radio station. I'm blanking. Um, they were talking about APAC spending, not just nationally, but also they are starting to pour money into satellite things like Affordable Chicago Now and Elect Chicago Women. They're just innocuous PACs that sound great. I mean, I want to elect Chicago women, go women, love Chicago. But they're actually satellite PACs. They're dummy PACs for APAC to funnel money into state races so that not just your congressional candidates can be owned by Israel, but also your state politicians can be owned by the Israeli lobby. And I think that that is something that most Americans don't know. And I think is so troubling, not because I hate Israel, but because I hate as an American any foreign government. Like if the British were doing this, if the French were doing this, like if just take Israel out of it and you're like, yeah, the pro-British lobby, they own our politicians. They pay millions upon millions in just a Chicago race. And I think in New Jersey's 11th, they just spent 2.3 million. They poured it in through the United for Democracy project. Like, yeah, okay, United Democracy. I love that. That sounds like a great project, except it's pro-Israel money. And then they ended up letting the progressive win anyway because they split the establishment vote. So joke on
Well,
them.
it absolutely has been and is about money, and it's reaching a breaking point where, and I'm so thrilled to see it because, again, my generation and people that are in the 50, 60, 70-year-old range, this is just how it's been. They've never paid attention to it, and it's just been an accepted fact. But now we see Gen Zers and millennials getting heavily involved, and they want to make change. That's what is occurring here in Indiana. We just had a record number of filings in our state, the most that has ever happened since 1974, when in 1974 was the year that women were allowed to get a credit card on their own without their husband's signature. That's how long this has been a dry spell for us. We've got record number of filings, and our Indiana Democratic Party is taking credit for it like it was something they have done, and it's a laughable, it's just, it's like, are you freaking kidding me? The reason you have a record number in filing is because of what you haven't done. And so now they want to try to strip people away and remove them from their filings, saying they're not legit, that they didn't follow the laws. We have district chairs or county chairs writing letters to our state leadership telling them that we don't need to have the money. And why is Beau getting $25,000 from a dude that's on the board of peace? And her response is basically, well, you need money to win campaigns. No, you don't. You need votes. You need the support of the people. And I think that's the trend that they're going to see in this state. You know, they're telling our candidates they need $150,000 to raise for their campaign.
Can you
So
imagine
right
if
now,
politicians like raised money as hard as they do for campaigns for their constituents, for SNAP or Medicaid benefit? Like, just imagine.
it's just mind-boggling to me. I just don't understand. And they aren't getting it. They don't understand it. It's simply flying over their head. There's an Instagram page. It's got the word Democrat and millennial in it, and I won't mention who they are. But on Thursday, they made a post about supporting Jasmine Crockett. This was right after the videos came out about Jasmine Crockett being asked about the AIPAC money that she takes, and her basically saying there wasn't anything wrong with it, and all this. So I made a comment on the page about, so you support AIPAC funded candidates. Okay. I like Jasmine. I love her vigor. I love
I like
her,
her vigor and venom, but
her,
I
but
think
she's
that her
taking
voting
AIPAC money and trying
right.
to normalize it.
Yes.
So I
Okay,
made a
so
comment,
There too.
and my God, I got attacked by these people. I
Yes,
got attacked by
it
them.
is. It's a cult by And if you say anything nice about Tallarico, who also takes APAC money, so not making excuses for him either. I don't love
No,
it, but like
right.
both candidates, I like them. They're fine. I don't love that they're both APAC funded. Wish that wasn't the case, but they do. The moment you say something about Jasmine Crockett, where you're like, yes, I love her venom and her vigor. It's great. I love that she calls people out. I love that she holds them on their shit, but then she goes and votes, and she votes with them. And so that's where I'm just like, okay, but friend, if you're gonna posture as a progressive, you have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And I think AOC does that too. And I like her, but sometimes, man, you're out here with Bernie doing a fight the oligarchy tour, and then you tweet no war with Iran. You tweet like I mean, we're not dumb, right? She is clearly posturing for a 2028 presidential. This is your moment to say, I am anti-war with Iran. I see the writing on the wall. This is Iraq 2.0. I know how this game plays out. Someday, everyone will always have been against this. I could be the first person to stand out there and be the progressive person and stand against this. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to tweet no war with Iran and hope that's great.
I did an interview the other day because I was thinking about it. And I was like, I don't understand why when you do get, say, like a congressman, they end up making a lot of money in comparison to normal people, right? And I always couldn't quite figure out, like, once you start to make that kind of money, why aren't you then reinvesting in your community, like reinvesting in your constituents? And I just don't understand what's so hard about that. Like, most of these people have never even been to Israel, right? Like, you can be anti-war, you can be anti-war with Iran, you can be anti-Israel and not anti-Israeli citizen. That's not like you being anti-Jewish. Like, you don't hate all Jewish
You're a member
people.
of Congress and you haven't been to Israel yet. Rest assured, AIPAC will get you there.
Right, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sorry.
I'm just trying to paint a bigger picture here for people. And I also think this is really important if we're talking about travel, right? Like, why are we sending people that are supposed to represent us, that are supposed to be the best of us, or at least try and make an educated guess at something, right? You just see all of these bad moves across the board. Like, for example, why would we send a white Louisiana guy to Greenland that is full of native people? Like, we have all these missteps all over the world, right? And I'm just saying, like, what I would like to see in my candidates are, first of all, maybe they say, hey, like, we don't need to do this forever. We need limitations on these seats, any of the seats. Like, we don't need like 86-year-old House members. We don't need 86-year-olds in Congress. I mean, how could you possibly? You can't, like, you don't know what it's like to be a single mom with 3 little kids and trying to manage bills and how to pay for them. And I mean, let's not even talk about health care, right? So then it doesn't matter whether it's AOC or Bernie or Jasmine Crockett, which, by the way, I did not know that about Jasmine Crockett, and that makes me sad because I really liked her. And
hmm
that's what I hate about this. There's this whole backdoor thing going on where normal people are like, right, I see this person, I like them, they seem like they're saying things that are speaking to my gut, and like, yeah, I'm going to vote for them. But then nobody tells them the backside of it. It's like, oh, yeah, and by the way, they also take APAC money. And that's why I think it's so important to get big money out of politics, right? Because how can we ever fix things for Americans if we have other outside, like heavy outside influences lining the pockets of all these politicians across the board? Like, I always say that I'm an equal opportunity offender because I care about my family, I care about Hoosiers, I care about Americans. Obviously, I care about everybody around the world. But how can you be objective realistically if, let's say, you've got like 20 million of APAC money sitting in your back pocket? And then to what end? Like, everybody knows you don't get anything for free. Like, people barely give you a hamburger for free. But
Yeah,
certainly,
I don't think that we're saying, or at least I'm not, and I think you guys are the same thing. We're not saying we're not going to support Jasmine, or we're not going to support Tallarico, because obviously we want to win that seat. Okay, that's the bottom line. We have to have a Democrat in that seat. Uh, so we have to choose what we feel is the lesser of two evils. Which do we want? A level-headed Christian white guy who keeps us cool and who talks sense the majority of the time, or do we want an educated black woman who's got the fire in her to just put people in their place, who both take money that we maybe don't agree with? If we had our choice, we wish that neither one of them would take APEC money, but it's there. So we're not abandoning them. We're just weakening, you know, the faith that we once maybe had in them as candidates by knowing this.
but I
So,
think it's
uh,
important to say, though, Kurt, right? Like, we should at least be able to have this conversation in public that we're like
hmm
disappointed, right? Like,
hmm
we should be able to tell these people, hey, we liked you and we're disappointed because we're normal people. And we want to make sure that you're fighting for us.
So for me, I think from the Arab perspective, because like what Kurt said is true. You have to play realistically, and realistically, your option is not some no APAC free Palestine candidate. As much as I maybe want to see that, so for me, I'm looking at, like you said, I'm looking at the field, going, okay, do I think that Tallarico is going to be somebody that I can possibly persuade to not take Israel money, or to not continuously just sign on to these agreements where we send billions to defend them? Or do I think that Crockett will do that? That's kind of where I start to, because I mean, you're right. We want a Democrat in this seat. I don't want to see either one of them fall. I want to see the person that I think I could persuade more to be like, hey, you believe in human rights for some people. Could we maybe extend that across, the pond? Could we maybe go outside of these borders and agree that human rights extend to anyone who is human because they're human? And I have hope, honestly, for both of them. I am disappointed that they both take APAC money, but I think
hmm
that Jasmine Crockett being a strong-minded, educated Black woman, I think that Tallarico being a Christian, I think that both of those have the potential to be like, hey, let me appeal to your humanity for a moment and get you to see that we're not saying that we're asking for Israel to cease to exist. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see Jews pushed off into the sea. That's the thing I hear always, that they're like, you Arabs, you just want to push the Jews into the sea. Absolutely the fuck not. Nobody wants to see that. I just maybe want to have a real conversation about, Israeli dollars in my politics, in the elections, in our conversations, without being called an anti-Semite.
Well,
I
it
think
bothers me that we have to
I
classify
hate
our
Glenn.
positions, and we have to justify it by saying things like we're not anti-Jewish, we're not anti, you know, that I don't understand that, and that's, but this kind of shit happens all the time. We're not saying that we are anti anyone. All three of us have a strong belief in humanity having rights and just, fighting for the rights of every single person that lives on this earth. I don't think people understand the grasp that Israel has on the United States, and with companies like Apollo Global and other companies who have basically ripped us apart for years. The money that we give to them and the control that they have in our nation is unbelievable. I did some research on this exact thing, and since World War II, we have given them 250 or 60 billion dollars. Okay, this year alone we've allocated 38 billion dollars to Israel. Now, one thing that people I think miss a lot of times is how much $1 billion is. Okay, so if you take 38 billion dollars and divide it by 365 days of the year, do you know how much money that is per day? Over $10 million per day we are giving to Israel. Now, we want to sit back and do that, but then strip away SNAP and say that it's our programs designed to help people that are bankrupting our country, that it's SNAP that is bankrupting our country, I mean, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
And I don't think people understand,
No, and
the magnitude of this.
there's like
It blew me away
two
when I
little
started breaking
extra
down the numbers.
two little extra layers to that aid, because yes, and one, we don't give aid to Israel the way that we give aid to other countries. We give aid to other countries in like allowances quarterly. You have to, you come back and we give you more. We give Israel
And
all
with
of their
sanctions,
money.
usually,
Yeah, we give them all of their money
guidelines.
right up front, day one, on the first day, and then they can put it into a fund that then collects interest. And I think there was 1 year where it collected like $600 million in interest because they just put this money into their bank and held on to it. We also
Well,
have,
what's wild is a lot of it goes to military spending,
yes,
and
and we have
within this, they have to spend their money with American contractors that are making these military
yes,
weapons. So
but they're the
not only
only
is
ones.
Israel benefiting from our money, but then the corporations in America are benefiting from the money that we're giving to Israel by making profit off of the machinery and the weapons that they're making.
Only one who doesn't have to actually do that entirely. Every other country, when we give them military aid, they have to, by law, spend it with an American manufacturer. Israel is the only country that has an exception where they don't have to do that. And oftentimes now they do not do that. They don't really want to go with Lockheed Martin or Raytheon because they have better Israeli tech companies that do better than us. So now they're just taking our money and investing it in their own companies, investing it in their own economies, using it for defense, and then whatever money that they generate in taxes that they don't need to now use in defense because we pay for their defense, they get to use in healthcare and free education and childcare and infrastructure.
So I was gonna say all that, which I think is important because I don't think that people know, especially Hoosiers don't know, right? Because I do think Hoosiers, by and large, across the board, they care about kids, and they don't necessarily love that you're taking money away from kids' programs. But most people also don't know that Indiana currently, right now, holds. Let's see. This quote is from May 2024. That we hold $110 million in Israeli bonds. And in this state alone, we have now cut the budget for autism, for example. Now, we're telling families with autism, you know, you are not going to get some of this programming and we're going to cap your ABA. So, like, that is what started this whole thing for me, right? Because I had 3 little kids that were in ABA. And then all this stuff comes down. I have one child that's non-speaking that uses an AAC device, and everybody knows that early intervention is best. So then the state comes down and is like, yeah, we let some outside companies come into the state. Maybe we kind of mismanage some funds a bit. At the end of the day, though, it's the kid that's going to suffer. So we've decided we don't have enough money, and we're going to now put a cap on autism services. And then all of these autism organizations are scrambling to figure out what they're going to do. But they're also like, oh, okay, so, well, if they're going to do this, like, let's try and play ball so they don't make it as bad as they want to, because they were originally going to make it retroactive. And then all these autism organizations in the States are like, oh, thank God we talked them out of doing that. And I'm like, wait a minute, people. Like, these kids deserve services. And then whenever we start digging into all this stuff and all these connections, which I will, in a way, I should kind of thank Beau by. I know that sounds crazy, but if it wasn't for him running, I don't know that anybody would have been aware of the spider web of activity that's going on in Indiana with Apollo Global, Israeli money, Epstein money, and all this sort of thing, and how it interweaves through almost everything in the state. And I think that it's important for Hoosiers to just zoom out a bit and pay attention to a bit more, because as you start to dive down these rabbit holes, especially when you're following the money, you just see how wide and how dirty all of this is.
All of this has an opportunity cost. When you're talking about sending billions to Israel, you are talking about siphoning money out of communities that need it. You're taking money away from children who need it. You're taking money away from the disabled community. You're taking money away from our roads and bridges, our infrastructure. We could have high-speed rail in this country. We could have the America that I think Americans think we should have and deserve, the one that we work hard for, but our money gets sent somewhere else. It's frustrating to see how much money we buy in Israeli bonds, because that's debt. That's Israeli debt that we're buying essentially to help prop up their economy, and that's actually illegal. It's antithetical to American law. It's illegal. We're not supposed to be buying debt from other countries, but we continuously carve out these exceptions, these Israel-sized exceptions in our laws that makes it so frustrating. Like with the Magnitsky Act, we're not supposed to be sending money to a government that is committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. And yet that's exactly what we're talking about, is sending more money to a country that is committing a literal genocide and an ethnic cleansing. And now we're talking the Board of Peace, who is just doing an economic ethnic cleansing. So like it's insane to me that we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot here in this country in service of another country. And to your guys' point, like, Americans and Hoosiers just really don't know. They don't see it. And it's so devastating because we are being controlled by a foreign government. And that's so deeply frustrating. 250 years of the American experiment, all to be controlled by a different government. I mean, we shirked off the British, our British colonizers, only to find a new one. Like, insane.
But we can't help the black kids in Africa. God forbid. We're going to let all those kids die over there. And we're paying like pennies on the dollar. And everybody, like, this is what I hate about the distractions in this country, because it's all smoke and mirrors. It's like, oh, those poor black kids in, the desert somewhere. Well, fuck them. Like, we don't have funds for them. And we're just going to go ahead and incinerate all these little peanut butter packets and stuff like that. We have all this stuff that we could send to them. But no, we're not going to do that. And yet it's okay. And like I said, I would be saying this to any place. I'm actually like, we could talk about Ukraine too, right? Like, those people have been fighting it out for a long while now. And the Russian government
4 years.
took a shit ton, like thousands of their children, to essentially be re-indoctrinated into the Russian system. There are all these overlaps of all this horrible shit that's going on right now. And we can't even, like, it takes the Polish government, for example, with these Epstein files to be like, yeah, right, fuck that. We're going to do something about that. But the American government is like, yeah, well, maybe I'm going to piss off one of my donors. Like, we've just got so many things that are just so messed up here. And people need to be having these conversations. This is why I'm saying this.
Well, diplomacy became a huge, important thing once we stepped onto the world stage, in which it should be. But over the years, mainly since World War II until present day, it has morphed itself into something that is just a fucking corrupt, misinterpretation of what diplomacy should be. And I
We are
100%
definitely
agree
living in
that,
a
you
Kissinger
know,
world.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I was going to point fingers at Nixon, but I didn't want to go there because, I'm not prepared to talk about all that shit.
I
But,
get that.
Yeah, I mean, but this is absolutely. I mean, we live in a world where the billionaires take control, and we can pinpoint this down to Ronald Reagan and when he stepped onto the scene, not only as governor but when he came in as president, and we're controlled by billionaires. That's what's happened. Our whole system, and it's expanding globally now, as you can see with the Board of Peace and others. I mean, you can be part of the Board of Peace if you give us $1 billion. It's like, okay, that seems like a reasonable thing. And then wait a minute, the two guys who are at the top of it are probably the two worst fucking
Right?
criminals.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bring him to the United States for a meeting, and doesn't he have an international warrant on
Yes.
his ass?
Yes, he
Okay.
does.
I
He's
mean,
wanted in the
but
International Criminal Court.
but Trump does this kind of shit. I mean, he brought the guy in from I
Sarar
can't think of right
from Syria, the Al Qaeda terrorist.
the dude that used to be the Al Qaeda operative and went out and played he played
Oh yeah,
basketball and shit. That had a $10 million bounty on
yes,
his head because of war crimes against American
yes, because he was an Al
military
Qaeda
personnel.
terrorist who killed Americans on 9/11, and he literally, in his wildest dreams, could never have imagined that one day he would be playing basketball at the fucking White House. And yet, of course, because Israel looked over at Syria and went, Assad's a puppet regime for Russia, so we got to decapitate that leadership. When they did exactly what Kissinger always said, you just got to take the snow globe and shake it up a little bit. Even if you can't get a guy you want in charge, you can at least destabilize Syria and make them a non-threat. So yeah, I mean, great, you
It's crazy.
destabilized
It's crazy.
Assad, and he was absolutely the butcher of Syria, no questions.
Absolutely, yeah,
But an
absolutely.
Al
Speaking-
Qaeda
And thank you for bringing
terrorist
that up.
cannot fucking be the head of Syria now. That is not what the Syrian people wanted. They wanted a democratically elected leader who cares about Syrians, not some asshole terrorist who now is wreaking havoc on communities that are like the Alawite community. Assad came from an Alawite minority, and he was again a butcher, but at least there was a bit of secularism in Syria. And now we have an extreme Islamist jihadist who is the president and is now committing atrocities against Alawites, who are a Muslim minority. So, like, we did not make the region safer with that move. All we did was shake the snow globe a little bit to make it more amenable to Israel, not to help Syrians, not to help the Middle East in any meaningful fucking way.
Well, I think a lot of this, I mean, it didn't start with it, but if you want to talk about optics, when we allowed Putin to come over here, and then we had our soldiers literally roll out the red carpet for that motherfucker, I think just about every relative that I have that's alive or in the ground was either rolling in their graves or the eye rolls were like deep in the skull. I know that's how mine was, because I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, relatives of mine fought in these wars, like, since the American Revolutionary War, right? And anyway, what I mean to say is, I think there are so many people in the U.S. right now that are like, what in the holy fuck is going on? Like, across the board. And then you're always going to have your extremists, which, I spent a lot of time in France. I think this is like solid advice. The French were always big on, everything in moderation. Can't have too much food, can't have too much wine. I think we're at this point where it's like, we need to not have so much war. We need to not have so much like greed. I mean, it's become very excessive, and that's about the nicest way I can put it. Like, these people are putting the robber barons to shame.
Yeah, at least the robber barons had to donate a library to us. We've got the Three Horsemen of the Apocalypse donating to Beau. I mean, like, Mark Rowan is problematic, but William Oberndorf, is that how you pronounce his name? Being the anti-school choice, I am so fucking disappointed. I know that's not what this is about, but really quickly, I am so disappointed in the Democrats for not standing up against that as well. Like, it's a pillar of democracy. The robber barons had to give libraries to democratize knowledge and things to, give the peasants something to be like, here, I'm not all bad. Our robber barons don't even fucking do that. And we have them actually taking money from the people who are now trying to take a wrecking ball to democracy. again, school and knowledge being a pillar of that. So if you are the Democratic Party and you are taking money from someone who wants to destroy a public institution like public schools, that is democracy in action. That is giving everyone, regardless of your race, regardless of your background, your economic situation, you have the right to come to school and get a fucking education just like the rest of us. Your ass is going to line up in line and go to the bathroom just like the rest of us and eat this shitty ass lunch given to you by the Department of Defense just like the rest of us. And we're all going to be great. It's going to be great. And the Democrats are like, no, money is good money. And even money from school choice, people who are absolutely antithetical to democracy, their ideas are antithetical to democracy. They're going to be like, yeah, that's good money. Let's take it.
Well, I just want to say, I think that what we are proving here is that we started off this pod to talk about the Board of Peace and the war in Iran, or the attacks in Iran, and we can just see how, how many fingers this thing has once you start talking about it. And our main reason why we dug into this was because of the money that Beau was receiving. It was affecting our state, and we wanted to know why and how. And we haven't even touched so much of the Apollo global management control that they have on, like, their purchase of the company, and help me out here, I'm losing, LifeTouch, and Shutterfly, who have the database to kids' photos across the country and Canada, and that Leon Black, who stepped down as CEO because of his connections with Epstein, and actually, I think, what was it, $158 million he paid to Jeffrey Epstein over a period of time, and then ended up settling with the U.S. Virgin Islands for, I think, like $63 million because of his involvement with
His innocent involvement.
situation.
He said he was innocent. He paid a settlement.
Innocent
Yeah.
people always pay $60 million to settle.
And speaking about the spider web, though, Kurt, this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because you have people like Leon Black, who his son works for the White House.
Yes.
I mean, you start to dive into these things and you see how interconnected all these rich people are and how they very clearly just don't give a shit about regular people.
But Beau is a Democrat in Indiana. That's what we're supposed to remember. Because, he's very intimately connected with, Mark Rowan and Leon Black. And to your point, Leon Black's son is like 40 years old. Beau is 30 years old. I see how there's a 10-year difference. I'm 30 years old with so many friends who are 40s and 50s and 60s. Like, that does not fucking matter, especially if you are someone who just needs that higher level thinking, I guess. I don't know. I don't get along with
Well, and the alarm in all of this.
But
the alarm in all of this.
How close all of this. Like, how are you going to say we want this Democrat to be our Secretary of State? Look how closely, intimately they are related with the MAGA White House. Are we serious right
now? And let's not forget the fact, Evan, Beau's daddy, who is in complete control of this campaign, I don't give a shit what anybody says, has worked for Apollo Global Management since 2011, knows all about all of this shit, is a lawyer by trade, works on their advisory board, and you don't tell me that Evan didn't know all about this shit with Leon and was part of the payoffs and all of this shit by, making sure the documentation or whatever needed to be done was in. Don't tell me he didn't know all of that.
I suppose
he knew all about it, and he made a conscious decision to stay employed with them to this day.
Because he started in 2011.
Yeah, exactly. In 2011, that's where the fucking alarm should be sounding off to these people in our state, and it's like an alarm clock. It's not a fucking siren. It's just crazy.
Because Kurt, you're older than me, right? But this is how I try and think about things like this. How many people do you know, irregardless of party affiliation, that could have worked for a company for that long, with the business meetings and the phone calls and the emails and all of the things that come with it? You are not going to tell me for 1 second that he, at the very least, was not sitting in a room with Epstein, like at one of those breakfasts or one of those dinners or one of those parties. And then also, by default, you're not going to tell me that Beau has not been sitting in rooms with Mark Rowan and Leon Black, or at the very least his kids, because Mark Rowan's kids are about the same age as Beau and his brother. So even if maybe there's more of an age gap with the Black kids, the Rowan kids are about his age. So just watching how these circles go and how these things work just gives me pause, because it just makes me wonder how much of this toward behavior, right, is acceptable to these people. Because I don't travel in circles like that, and I sure as shit, whenever I smell a snake, I'm gonna be like, look, you know what, maybe I didn't catch it initially, but I'm out. Like, I don't want to be in a room with you. I don't want to have dinner with you. Like, and I guess this is what's concerning for me about Beau. This is why I don't like those people that are like, oh, don't pick on the guy. I will pick apart anybody when it comes to Hoosiers, because my kids live here. My nieces and nephews live here. I care who steps into these seats because that affects my family. You're not going to tell me for 1 second that all of that dirty money hasn't, at the very least, concerned someone. And the fact that it hasn't, the fact that he hasn't, publicly given the public some sort of valid response, even if it was as little as, hey, my bad, I didn't know that. I wasn't sure. Let me look into it. He's not even given Hoosiers that. And stuff like that, for me, as a grown-up, creates pause.
I'll
Because
be
I
honest,
have to
I don't
think,
even think he could explain that away, just because this could sound so bad, but like the pedophilia of it all is like finding out that Bill Clinton smoked pot. Like, that's not, I mean, that wouldn't be the headline issue for them. It is for us, because you and I, like, we're all normal people here, and we're going, that's pretty fucked up, dude. Like, in no universe is that right. But they're not in our universe. They're fucking aliens. They're not, their mind has been bended by the amounts of money. There's been so many studies that have shown that, like, once you reach $1 billion and you go beyond that, your brain just doesn't operate the same as ours does. Because you and I understand consequences. We understand guardrails. We understand structural things like laws. They don't. They don't understand that because they just throw money at it. They're like, no, I'll just buy the
Yeah,
politician.
it
Yeah,
goes right over their head.
right.
And when we say things about Beau and when we bring up facts and talk about it, we're labeled that we're attacking them and
Right.
we're creating division.
And the
I
pedophilia
know
for
all
them
of
is
us
like
have created
a
posts where people
sideshow.
have
Yeah. And they're the pedophilia for them is like the sideshow. That's like their thing that they do to like let off steam. And yes, that is gross and wrong. And I don't want to make it sound like the abuse of children and American daughters and sons is okay. It's not. But for them, they're not really, they're thinking, oh God, please, normie people stay on that. Because if that's all you're going to get me for, oh yeah, I inhaled, I smoked a little pot back in the day. Like, that's how they're treating this. Where it's really, it's that you think that you can get away with that kind of shit, because actually what you get away with is the shit like Apollo Global does, where Evan Bayh is a governor, a senator. He's worked in these halls of power. He knows how the machine works because he's seen how the sausage gets made. So Apollo looks around and goes, I need someone who knows how the sausage gets made. Okay, Evan, here, you already like us. We've already worked with you to get a giant loophole in Congress through for us. So we'll just hire you, and then we'll put you as a senior advisor. And now you sit on the board of RLJ companies. It's Hilton. It's fucking hotel company that he sits on the board of. He sits on the board of petroleum company that I am blanking on, Marathon. So like he sits on the board of all these companies, and he knows how the sausage gets made, so he gets to use that knowledge that he learned in government to help businesses skirt government and skirt the rules. And so like they're hoping that we stay over here with the pedophilia and focus on that, because they would rather us focus on that than focus on the fact that yes, Leon Black is a gross person, and so is Mark Rowan probably. I can't imagine, it's allegedly, but I can't imagine he's not doing something nefarious. But also over here in the why do they want Beau? Probably not to invite him to a pedophilic orgy, right? But probably because they want to get a lot of shit passed. Evan Bayh is absolutely running that campaign. And anyone who thinks that he isn't, I have got a bridge to sell you. Please hit me up. I need money. I've got a bridge to sell you, because this man is not this 30-year-old kid. And I understand.
Has no clue.
It's no clue.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
he's had a silver spoon in his mouth his whole life.
Right.
He's
He
never
has
done anything
agency,
on
but
his
he
own.
chooses not to flex that because he's a Nepo baby. He's never had to stand on
Right.
his own. He's never had to
Exactly.
stay up and be like, now listen,
Right.
Dad, I'm my own person. Every Hoosier around me has, though, especially if you're a Democrat in Indiana, you know intimately what it is to stand up and say, look, man, I love you. You're my family. This is what I believe. And we can love each other at the end of the day, but God damn it, this is what I believe. He's
And
never
that's
had to do
that's
that.
the disconnect that he has with Hoosiers that people are going to pound him on, is because he didn't have to get a job in a restaurant bussing tables at 14 years old so he could buy a baseball glove in order to play Little League baseball. He didn't have to work in in a restaurant in high school in order to pay for the insurance on his car or to pay for the maintenance on his automobile that was a piece of shit that he barely could get on his
But hey,
own,
that
like I
2000
had to
Honda
do.
got you from point A to point B.
Yeah, he didn't have to do all that. So when people tell me that I shouldn't attack Beau because I'm creating division, fuck you. You're the one creating division by supporting him. You are the one creating the division, not me. I'm
Jesus
just speaking up
Christ.
for what is
Like,
right. The division is there. And this is the problem with the Indiana Democratic Party. They are so focused on money and name recognition, they don't give a shit about the character or the past or the connections. They don't care that Evan is the national leader of the No Labels Party. They don't see that as being a conflict with the Democratic Party at all. It's make it make sense, God damn
Yeah,
it. I mean,
right.
Jesus, it's unbelievable.
Missed to hide that as well. When you're saying that we're gonna run him as the Democrat, we need Democrats, and then we've got his dad who is no labels. It's dishonest. That man is not a Democrat. He's not gonna be a Democrat. And Evan Bayh was not a fucking Democrat. Not in. I mean, this tent is too big. In my opinion, this tent is too fucking
Yeah.
big. If we can have Evan Bayh in this tent with me over here, this tent is too fucking big, and I'm gonna ask for a new tent. And I hear how people are, no, we have to build. Yes, we can build coalitions with different tents. I see it all over the world. We absolutely can do this. We need to stop with this two-party shit because no one is working with the working class. We have two petite bourgeois parties that only care about a rich billionaire from the Republicans or a rich billionaire
Money,
from the
money,
Democrats. And at the end of the day, they're not even they're not Republican or Democrat. They're just rich.
Yeah.
They're just looking around and going, I can buy that politician.
It's profit over
and
people.
him."
It's profit
Right.
over people. That's what they believe in. And we
Right.
believe in people over profit.
Absolutely.
It's pretty simple. I mean, not to be cliche about it. So,
well, let's
so
bounce
hey,
back.
anything else you want to say about this topic so we can spend a little bit of time talking about Iran?
Yeah, all I was going to say was let's bounce back to how Hoosiers are, right? Because this is something that I think is important to talk about. Any Hoosier that you run into, and this is what I don't like about the people that are currently sitting in office that are misrepresenting us. Hoosiers are strong, gritty people who basically take no shit. So I don't think they're going to be real cracked up about any of the parties choosing candidates, pushing candidates on them. I think across the board, Hoosiers want to see people that reflect them. They want to see people that reflect their values. And this is probably a good time to go into Iran then, because I think most Hoosiers, a large part of who are military veterans, are like, we don't want any more war. This is bullshit. Like, you're not going to pull the veil all over our eyes again, especially for those of us that are old enough to remember, or maybe had friends that went to Iraq, Afghanistan. Maybe you're old enough to have Desert Storm friends. Like, it's bad.
Yeah. To add to your little Hoosier thing, just real quickly, and then we'll get on to the Iran situation. When I started creating content on Instagram and my page started growing, you wouldn't believe how many messages I got, which I can't keep track of nowadays. But the messages I used to get was that people could not believe that a white dude with gray hair from Indiana talked like I did and said the things that I did. I mean, people said all the time, I didn't know guys like you existed in Indiana. So the perception that people have of Indiana and who we are is completely, well, I can't say it's wrong because, we project that as a state, but
It's only a
it ain't who
facet
we
of
are.
us. I was
We're
going to say
not
It ain't
all
who we
that,
are.
though.
No.
That's the problem. We're not all that.
You start
No,
sitting
right.
down and have coffee with some of us, and you're going to find out there's a hell of a lot more progressives, liberals, and Democrats in this state than what people realize. They have just been too scared over the past years to come to the forefront. And I think we have been part of that, and we will continue to be part of making sure that that doesn't happen and that Democrats have a voice and progressives make change in this state. And that's what our mission is. So I don't know about you two, but I think this is a good spot where we end our first pod and we come back with more of this story where we dive deep into not only the Board of Peace, but also Iran. This is Make It Make Sense.